all helplessly watched the news about Haiti's devastating earthquake unfold, Jean was living it. He had been on the schedule to have his leg amputated after his house fell in on him that very day. 9 inches of his tibia were crushed, and he was on the surgery schedule for amputation. After waiting over a week for help, and surgery had already, or infection, had already set in. With dozens of patients needing surgery and patients were arriving every day, the doctors there told me it was like tending to the wounded during war. They had to make very quick decisions. They had so many children to help. Now Jean's story and future changed the morning where he was supposed to have his amputation, when one of his relatives snuck in and gave him food, which canceled his surgery. The anesthesiologist canceled the surgery, and at that moment, another doctor had been waiting in the wings, not quite confident that they were doing the right thing. He stepped in that day. He knew of our organization, and he said, no, he's not going back on the surgery schedule. We are going to help this child. He knew an amputation for a child in Haiti was a sentence of poverty. Well, John came to us shortly thereafter, and over the next 27 months, and through the Herculean efforts of several physicians, nurses, physical therapists, this caregiver who came with him, 22-year-old cousin, Romel, his host parents who treated them both like their own sons, and the dedication of the World Pediatric Project staff, Jean's leg was saved. It had taken novel to relate to you those 27 months. I can assure you, suffice to say, there were ups and downs. There were setbacks, frustrations, and many, many celebrations. I not only had the honor of being with Jean through much of his care. His host family lived just 5 minutes away from me, so we spent a lot of time at my home. I also was able to accompany him and his cousin Romel back home last month. So I knew we were returning to Carrefour, which was at the epicenter of the earthquake, but we didn't know much more. Romel was going to return to the countryside where his family was. Admittedly, I was a bit disturbed when we stepped off that plane and his mother was not there. I was devastated that this child had been gone for so long and his mom was not there to greet him. So after about an hour-and-a-half drive through the dusty, pothole-ridden roads of Port-au-Prince and a long, steep, winding climb through a maze of cement in their hillside, shabby neighborhood, we came to Jean's humble home. Bursting through that wooden door of the tiny cement structure, a bright blue wooden cap atop her head, was the woman from the first photo I had ever seen of Jean, and a face that mirrored his own. She threw her arms around him, crying and exclaiming, "He's got the leg. He's got the leg." Her tears continued to pour. She hugged Romel and repeated him and Jean's name over and over again. And I was gifted with the next hug, which was so loving and so full of emotion that my tears flowed freely along with hers. I was accepting that thanks not for myself, but for all those who had helped Jean. We were invited inside the steamy one-room home furnished with just one square table and 4 chairs in the middle of the room, flanked intimately by a twin bed on each side. That was it. That was their bedroom, their dining room, their study, their living room. And out of the corner of my eye, I caught something on the bed. It was a mass of wet curls sticking out of a little pile of blankets. And I saw an angelic face and a little tiny fingers clutching a blanket. And I looked at Jean's mom, Maria Claire, with a huge smile on her face. And I knew why she hadn't been at the airport. She had had that little baby hours before we arrived. She sat beside me and perspiration pouring down her head. She had delivered that son about 6 hours ago, left the hospital early because she wanted to be there when her second son, her firstborn son, arrived She climbed that hillside, a steep hillside, baby in arms, to be there. Her 2 boys had arrived home the same day. Jean and Romel were stunned, to say the least. In the next 4 days, I was with Jean. I listened to him. I listened to him switch from speaking English back to his native language of Creole. And remarkably, he seemed so at home in both places. Jean was home.